Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
And now it's time for another special feature.
Tickle.
Did you grow up with a NES, PlayStation, Star Wars, cartoons, and 80s TV? Do you like to think who would win in a fight between Batman and the Master Chief? Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. Comics, games, movies, music, and TV. They're gonna tell you everything you need. Superheroes or not, they got your back. They're gonna save the world of geeks. This week in geek. This week in geek.
Hello and welcome to a special TWIG special that is on the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. Our impressions, how we got it. I'm assuming we all have interesting stories. This has been probably the most stressful launch we've ever had, even more so than during the pandemic when it was struggling to get two consoles. But that's right. It's I, Alex, the producer, here to talk about my journey getting the Nintendo Switch 2, along with Birdman and Ken. How are you guys doing today?
I'm alive.
All right.
That's all I can ask for.
Yep.
I'm good.
All right.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll sort of explain how this is going to go. I have a segment we're going to be including in the middle of the show here, which is going to be covering all of the game ports that were available at launch that we were sent for review, because they're ones that either we have played before for previous consoles and done reviews on, or, weren't going to be something that we would sit down and do full-length reviews on because we, for the most part, already have. And they're sort of bunched together so we can talk about how they were improved, what they've added to brought to the table, sort of thing. And then as far as individual reviews, we'll be doing those for games that have, are brand new, like a complete remake or something exclusive to the Switch, Switch 2. It's going to be a hard, long time before we're used to saying Switch 2 every time, right? But that's going to be in the middle of the show, and we'll come back at the end and sort of, discuss what we've got coming up and what we're, looking at programming-wise. But for this intro segment, what we're going to be discussing is just our initial thoughts, I think, on how the console feels and everything. And also, if we could each sort of explain what our process was like in getting the console, because I know we've all got stories. Would you guys mind if I started with mine first?
Sure, go for it.
Sure.
Right. So I think we're going to have similar stories in that we were all pretty much up when the pre-orders went live, or supposedly went live, and just went nuts trying to get secure consoles and pre-orders and getting security notifications on our credit cards for just like, you're trying to purchase a lot of things at once, and are you sure you'd like to do that? Clicking yes, and then finding in that time period your order's been canceled or moved around. And anyway, long story short, if you remember, Mike, on that night that the pre-orders went live, the only thing that we were able to secure were the SD Express memory cards,
Which oddly enough proved to come in clutch.
Yes,
yeah.
because in Canada there was no option for anything above the 256 gig official cards until literally launch day. They got the GameStop cards, and local GameStops had like 2 or 3 of the 512.
Yeah.
And I found out they are a little cheaper, I think, than what we paid. I think they were like
yes.
150 or 160 Canadian, and ours were 190, but they're slower. They're the slowest ones.
Yes, they are slower. That is the one thing. That is the one thing. Lexar is the Lexar ones are actually above and beyond the best ones.
Yeah, 900 meg read, and I think 880 write. Whereas I think the official ones are 800 read and 700 write, something like that.
Yes.
And I think the ONN, like the Walmart brand, which surprisingly has one, is the slowest. I think those are 600 read and write.
But they are also extremely cheap.
Yeah, because they're binned. I think they were the ones that didn't quite make the grade for, I believe it's the GameStop ones. I think they're SanDisks that were like not up to code. But like enough. But those, like, you will actually feel a physical difference in playtime if you're using one of those versus one of the Lexars. So we ended up, and also the Lexars have a 10-year warranty. So we ended up, out on top, Michael, getting ours, and just not having to deal with that. But then, we ended up securing pre-orders different places, and eventually it ended up being for, I think, all of us, we ended up getting ours through GameStops, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And ours, we placed our pre-order at GameStop, and after we got our pre-order, I think it was like the next day after pre-orders went up, they announced that GameStop was sold to a different company in Canada, and it's going back to being EB Games. So that explains some of the stuff. I'll say this: I also pre-ordered the Biogenic travel case, the deluxe travel case, and their travel dock, and I still haven't received a call saying it's in. We're 2 weeks in, and when I was there, like we didn't receive it, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You didn't receive your own brand?
Yep.
So I have a feeling that they didn't receive the dock for a very specific reason. It's come out now that it's not about the power, as far as like doing. Remember how the old docks were shorting out systems when the Switch 1 launched that were third party? It's not that. It's come out now that to do video pass through, it requires exactly 20 volts and something or other specific power setting. Otherwise it'll charge, but it won't display to the TV. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
In pure Nintendo fashion, something had to be weird.
So I'm having a feeling that they might not have come out because maybe they didn't know that. And because like, as far as I can tell, nobody has that third party dock. And as of right now, it was the only licensed third party dock. So we'll see what happens there. The travel case I'm surprised at, but whatever. And I'll say this, I did end up finding out that we were going to have a midnight launch, and it was going to be pretty much almost every single EB Games or GameStop store in Canada was doing it. Not everyone was going to do special events. I believe Birdman, I think you got some of the actual like experience. Like none of our stores had that.
Yeah, so speaking of that, so I told you guys and you had to verify it. Like, Mike, are you sure? I'm thinking, because I'm friends with some people in my local region. I'm not going to name who they are, but like, oh yeah, we're doing stuff. Our Nintendo reps dropping off some stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. So yeah, there was like a thing that says I went to the Nintendo launch event, and it's a fucking postcard. It's stupid, but there's a lanyard, which is pretty nice. And there was a cleaning cloth for.
Okay. The lanyard,
nothing major, but still cool.
The lanyard is, I looked at it, it's the exact same one that they have for like so many, I think it's 800 platinum points or something on the Nintendo store that you can redeem.
Cool.
So it's the same one. So, and you'd have to pay for shipping. So you got basically a $10 lanyard. Okay. And the cleaning cloth, I think is exclusive. I don't think that's given anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice had they given out maybe to the first 10 people in line those Nintendo backpacks that you got, but that's a pretty heavy ass.
I'm happy that they didn't, because I suffered for mine.
You did.
I've had friends say, well, you can get $150. I am not selling that backpack. That backpack is my blood backpack that I got for.
That backpack has a story.
I almost fainted in public for that backpack. I am keeping that shit. But yeah, sorry. I'll say this. we did go to our midnight launch. My brother had never been to one because the last time that we had a console midnight launch, at least in our area, was, oh man, was it maybe? I don't think
3DS?
we had. I was going to say it might have been a 3DS launch. I don't think the PlayStation 4 had one. And I don't think anything since then has had a midnight launch.
No.
So
this is the first one in a while that maybe wasn't a Pokemon thing or maybe a Magic thing.
like Pokemon, Magic, I know that Call of Duty used to do them. Mass Effect 2, I worked the Mass Effect 2 midnight launch. And I know Call of Duty's Halo used to have midnight launches. Gears of War used to have it was usually Xbox stuff. Console wise, I think it was the Wii and PS3. The last time we had like a nationwide midnight launch campaign.
I remember one for the Xbox One and PS4 at least locally.
You're right. There was. I don't know if it was a national wide one. Probably was. It's just I wasn't paying attention to it. So you're right. It was probably that. Like I obviously we couldn't do it for the pandemic. Like they weren't going to allow the opening like that. But but yeah. So I was like, you know what? I'll go. I'll drive you over. We can wait in line. He goes, should we get there? I said, let's get there a half hour early. You know, our consoles were secured. I said, you know, if they come out and tell us, you know, it's taking too long for, you know, we're not going to come back in the morning, I said I'd be upset. Or if they came out and said, sorry, we didn't hold your console, they would have to call the police because I would be burning the building to the ground. Because don't put it past GameStop to sell your console out from under you. Because when I worked there, even this is like 15, 20 years ago, what was their company motto and company line? Even if you've pre-ordered and paid fully in advance, which I did, you don't own it until you sign for that paper. They don't process it as a sale.
Yeah.
They just hold your money, right? They hold your money. It's not a purchase. It's a promise. And it's like when they would say that to people, they had us say that to people. I'm like, I'm surprised more people don't like melt down over that.
Yeah, like my experience pre-ordering this was annoying. So I'll go through this very quickly. So
yeah.
I stayed up the latest of all of us, watching about 4 or 5 tabs. I know people on social media who were posting when stuff went up. So I was on Staples, I was on Best Buy, I was on Walmart, I was on not Target. Oddly enough, Costco and Amazon, because I was looking out for your brother, I was looking out for our friend Matt, looking out for you, and I was like, okay, guys, I've got the endurance, I'll stay up. So I stayed up, refreshing tabs hundreds, if not thousands of times for all of us. I got your brother every amiibo that he could possibly get. That was a pain in the ass. And then I found out pre-orders. I was like, fuck it. It is 6 a.m. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. So I told my wife, Blair, it's like, look, I need you to do me a solid. Can you go here? So she's like, okay, fine. So I sent her out at 7 a.m. to go to GameStop. Go check the line. Is there anybody there? No. Okay. Go back at 9 o'clock. Is there anybody there? No. Go back at 10 o'clock. There's 3 people there. Okay. Get in line. By the time she got back, she was 6th person in line. She went in. We had a bit of luck, so we just paid everything off in full. We got a Mario Kart bundle and a Pro controller. And I'm like, fine, fuck it. It's done. It's dealt with. I don't want to hear about this until the console's in my fucking hands. So switch forward to the night before console launch. It is hot as balls. We're expecting a giant thunderstorm. I go into my local. I'm thinking, hey, man, I really don't want to suffer through this tonight. Are you going to make me? He's like, no. First off, it's you. So no. You can come back tomorrow and look. If you really want to do me a solid, come back tomorrow, come back after lunch when everybody's at work. Don't worry about it. You're fine. We've got you. So Blair went in the following day after launch night, which was June 5th. So on June 6th, she went in, picked up my console. She was in and out in less than 2 minutes. But there's a twist. So I'm tax exempt, which means I don't pay a percentage of the provincial sales tax. Cool. I didn't get the Switch camera. So I decided, hey, I'll use the money I would have paid anyway, get the Switch camera. So just through shenanigans and however GameStop, EB Games does their payment, they had to reverse the charges on my credit card and then reapply and then retroactively give me back the money that I was owed. They technically charged me for 2 Switches. It took days to get that money back. Finally got it back like 4 days later. But I'm like, hey, if you don't give me back my money, I would like my other Switch too, please, because fuck you. And it wasn't games, it wasn't that particular location's fault. It's just how the system works. Eventually I got my camera. I got the cute little piranha plant one because I'm a child. And
because you like having a camera from 1999.
yeah, honestly, it looks funny. It's cool. I don't give a shit. I have another camera. I'm going to test with the Switch out before the end of the month, but whatever. So anyway, I get this thing home, get it set up. I'm intensely annoyed with it. Like, this is one thing I will say about the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. This is the most annoyed I've been at a console launch in decades. Like, I don't know. It's just setting it up was just such a pain. Like, I remember people online posting on my Facebook, Mike, are you excited? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's over there. It's in a corner. I'll deal with it tomorrow. And it was so fucking frustrating to get this thing set up. And it's only because so much bullshit had led up to it. And I've got my Switch 2. I'm a week in. I'm having fun with it. But I feel like the launch experience has really tainted my perception of the console itself. I like Nintendo. I'm not the biggest Nintendo fan. I mean, honestly, the most excited I've ever been was the Wii U, and that's only because they sent it to me for free, and I had every single launch title that was ever published. And it was really cool. For this one, I felt irritated more often than not. Now that I'm a weekend, obviously that's gone. I'm having fun. Alex and he reviewed more games than me, obviously. And I had fun once firmware for certain controllers went out, namely my fight stick from 8-Bit Do. And once that happened, Mike is happy. But I like the Switch 2. I hope more stuff comes out for it, because this feels like a half measure as to why. But I don't know. I expected more from a launch, especially in terms of new games and shit. Because it feels like this is like, hey, it's the Switch. We got ports. And yeah, like I was really hoping that wheelchair game would launch like immediately. And I guess
there's still no date on that.
Yeah, and I'm like,
still
what
no
the
date,
fuck?
Which is
and that
weird.
fucking sucks. Yeah, that fucking sucks. That's the one game I was like, okay, that's a fucking day one buy. But, you know, here we are, like however many days later, and I'm just like, man, that kind of sucks. I'm still playing Mario Kart and Street Fighter on this thing. That's cool. But
I think you're probably also tainted by the fact that this is the first time a console has launched, and since we've been part of the media, you know, almost 20 years, and not had access outside of me doing the demo thing at the Nintendo experience, but not having access to do reviews until after the console launches.
Yeah, that is bullshit, because we had the Switch 1 in hand early. We had multiple partners send us software early. We were
Same
ready
with,
to go
and-
day and date.
And 3DS and Wii U.
Yep. We had everything ready to go. Even PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. We didn't get consoles till launch day, but we had software days before.
Well, and we, with our context, we originally were going to have consoles ahead of time, even if they were loaners. But then with the way the pandemic worked is at the last minute, both companies had to basically cut off almost everybody because they were so supply constrained that they just didn't have consoles to give out.
Yeah,
we know with Nintendo, this was not a supply constraint issue. There's plenty of consoles.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit ActiveDay.com to apply.
Yeah, that's something weird to mention too. I can go out right now, go to my local GameStop, Walmart, Costco. It is easy as fuck to find a console right now, and
And
we
for
were
you
worried about
guys-
console shortages.
Yeah,
and-
for you guys. However, here in the U.S., because they're only using the Taiwanese plant stock, you can't find anything right now
Whereas
until
here,
they get resupplyment.
yeah, I was going to say, Mike, looking more into it. Whereas here we have the Chinese and the Vietnamese stock.
Oh.
So where we were afraid we weren't going to get any consoles because everything was going through the States, we ended up with more. And it's not a matter of people like, see, it's not selling. No, it's selling millions. It's just the allocation to Canada was a higher amount than they actually needed to have because they were
Yeah.
still unsure of what. So the idea is ship us a whole bunch now so that, if things change in the future, let's say with crazy person taxes, if that changes again and makes it harder for us to restock, we still have our stock. So we're
Yes.
lucky in that it's not as crazy hectic as we thought it was going to be, but we still sold like thousands, millions of consoles. I think it was the only company
3.5 million.
the only company that announced it was Best Buy Canada had like 200,000, I think.
Mhm.
Or was it 200,000? No, I think it was 250,000 shipped to Canada total, which doesn't sound like a lot, but consider that we're a tenth the population of the States, right? Or 11th the population. So it's like, multiply that, that would be like America getting 2.5 million, which they did not. I think America got like 1.5 million. And then
Yeah,
the rest
something
of
like that.
because Japan sold 1 million alone, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say America probably got 1.5 million. Canada got a couple 100,000, which is surprising. You would figure we would have only got 100,000. So we probably might got double the stock we were expecting.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
and
And then the rest
also,
went to Europe.
Yeah. exactly. And then the scalpers can fuck off because
Oh, the
they're
scalpers
losing
are
money.
getting hosed.
Good.
The
So, I mean-
scalpers are getting hosed so bad, and it's so glorious.
So yeah, I'll say this. So I getting back to the story. I get back to the midnight launch with my brother. It starts to pour rain, like piss all over us, rain, and we're outside of a dead Target, which used to be Zellers, became Target, and has been empty for literally years, in this plaza. And there's probably 200 people in line. I'm like, oh my god! So we get there, and it starts to pour rain. I forgot my umbrella. My brother brought his, and there was a guy in front of us with an umbrella, so we sort of like snuck around together. But I'm already getting wet. I've already, I've got my problems with my knees and my ankles and that, and I didn't bring a chair, and I wasn't going to sit in the rain in a chair, which is crazy anyway. And I'm like, at least it's hot out, but because of the rain, I'm staying cool. I wasn't worried about like dehydrating because if I got thirsty, I could just open my goddamn mouth. But
Microplastics, Alex. Microplastics.
in front of me,
Yeah.
oh good lord, I had the caricature Gen Z streamer of all Gen Z streamers. There was a kid who, after trying to figure out his age, was probably 22, maybe 23 years old. And he was like something you'd see in like a Key and Peele like parody of what a
Sketch.
Gen Z streamer like. He had his phone rig out with a light on it and all this, and he was live streaming to YouTube, and every third word was a catchphrase like
Oh,
I
God.
thought it was doing like, hey, like fam, everything was fam this, skibbity bullshit, whatever random language,
Oh god.
like no cap, what else? He kept talking about Diddy parties.
Jesus.
He was he was begging people to pay him to say swear words out loud. The weird thing was he was friendly enough that he turned his camera away first and he was like, "Hey, I'm live streaming. Are you guys okay?" I'm like,
Y'all look
"Yeah,
good.
just
Yeah.
whatever. Just don't like point directly at us." And he was doing this talking, and he's like, then he's going out when he's getting bored, walking around the parking lot doing his live streaming, and then at the end we find out it was to 4 people.
Of course it was.
he had apparently like 8 or 10 at one point. He got $8 in donations, I think. Or wait, what? $16 in donations. And that was to yell out, what the fuck is everybody yell out at the goddamn Minecraft movie? Something jockey.
Chicken jockey.
Yeah, he had to yell that out twice and got that money. And I was waiting for somebody in line to say, "Hey, shut the fuck up," but they didn't. And so I don't know who this guy was. He was friendly enough and he wasn't rude to me. But like, if his stream was like, on YouTube and it's still there, and somebody does find it, I want to see how many people would watch it and realize that the entire time he was there, I was making fun of him in front of him, and he didn't realize. Because he'd be like this. I'd send him on missions and quests. I'd be like, "Hey, maybe your listeners would like to go, or your viewers would like to see how many people are in the line. Could you go count them for us?" And he'd start walking away, and I'd be like, "Well, that'll take him forever because he's got the brain of like a 6-year-old." And he would go, and he would come back. We asked him to count how many people are in the store when they started letting people in, to like count. And he comes back and he goes, "Oh, there's like one person in there, and there's like 6 people." And we're like, "Okay." And then later on, we find out he is so stupid he didn't realize it was 6 employees, and they were letting like 5 people in it. Like, he didn't understand like the concept of who works in a store and who is in a store that's shopping. He also got confused as to which side of the counter is the employee side. He thought the 2 people behind the counter that had been sitting there for like 15 minutes were shopping. They were the clerks working at the tills. So, yeah.
Woo!
Yeah. Anyway,
I stayed the hell home.
And it's like no caps, skippity boppity bop, bippity boppity. I was ready to start.
God.
I was like 10 seconds away from just going beep bop bada boat, bop bop bada boat, beep bop bop bada boat. Like, it was that. And I mean, again, friendly enough guy, but he was there with his younger brother who was with him buying the console. And I looked at his younger brother. He was a friendly enough kid. I was talking to him. He was 21. That's why I was figuring out the age of the other guy. And I was like, he's like, "Have you ever done one of these before?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've worked a couple of them." And I was like, "I worked, back when the, I think it was the, which one? One of the Gears of War games." And I know I worked the Mass Effect 2 one. And I was like, "Yeah." Because were you at any of those ones previously? I was like, "Oh yeah, I had a friend that camped out to get the PS2." And then the guy's like, "I wasn't born yet." And I went,
Yeah.
"Oh, I want to die."
Mm-hmm.
But the guy in front of him, there was one guy in front of him that was probably early 40s because he had a little bit of gray hair. He was there with his buddy, and I think he had his kid with him, but his kid was like already 17 or something. And he's hearing them talk. He looks at me. We locked eyes, and it was the locked eyes of, if we were allowed to murder people, like just based on their how annoying they were.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gave his kid this look, like, and the look was, look at the kid, look at the guy, look at the kid. It's like, don't you ever become something like this to the streamer guys.
Ooh, yeah.
But anyway, we made it through the line. We got there at 11:30. Doors open at 12:01. It was 2:05 before I was able to get in.
Jesus Christ.
And we got to the end, and my brother was like, "Do you want me to pull the car around?" And I was like, "I'm not leaving this line," even though the security guard there. My brother walked up without me knowing it, informed me. He's like, "My brother is, has a cane. He's like disabled. If he sits out here, let us know if you can go in and go early or whatever." And we could have made a stink of, getting in early and getting out, but it wouldn't have been fair to everybody else that was there before us.
Right.
But
right.
I was like, I just want to get in and go. We get into the store, and we find out part of the issue was the GameStop or EB Games. They were letting people shop for things that weren't the console. And I'm like, you motherfuckers. When I worked at EB Games in 2010, the rule was you had 2 lines, first of all, for midnight launches. The one line was anybody who already has a pre-order and is just picking up. And then you had a second line for anybody that wants to buy a console that wasn't on the pre-order, just in case we have extra. They let everybody go in line willy-nilly. They also didn't order the line. They should have said, everybody in the line, who has a pre-order? And they should have ordered us to have the pre-order people go first, get in and get out. But also, the old rules, even there and at Future Shops Less Games, or Best Buy used to be, if you were going for a pre-order, you were only allowed to pick up the pre-order or anything related specifically to that pre-order. So like if it was a pre-order launch of a console, you were allowed to get console-related items. People were walking out of the store with the Switch and Switch 2, and then also PS5 games and random merch. And it's like, if it's not related to the thing, I know that they're trying to make their money, but fuck you. Like, we also had a rule by 2 a.m. they had to do the midnight launch had to be over, and I found out that they didn't get out of there till 4. So they had people working the midnight lunch till 4 that had to go home and come back for 9 a.m. But anyway,
no. Here's the my story is pretty simple except for a few minor quibbles. So I had already, the day before, all of the GameStop branded stuff had all gone live on their website. So I grabbed all my stuff up there. I grabbed the SD card, I grabbed a case, and I grabbed a screen protector because the screen protector is cheap, whatever. So so day of launch, or the day before launch, I get the notification, hey, stuff shipped. Okay, good. Check what shipped. Not the SD card. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever. I guess they didn't get them in stock in time to ship it for launch day, whatever. Fine. Already had the pre-order from GameStop. I went in the day the day of the pre-orders in line at my local. Real simple. They had plenty of stock to pre-order. All good. Done. Bing, bang, boom. As far as I know, their midnight launch was very similar to yours. They got out at 4. However, it was the manager of the store and the main assistant manager that ran the midnight launch, and they were not opening. They had other guys open.
They had the third key holder person open up, because there's always
the third key holder was running,
and the key holder.
Yeah, and the key holder was running the store on pickup when I picked it up.
Well,
so
I mean,
whatever.
That's good. I still haven't received a couple of the items that I pre-ordered. The only thing I was able to get was the charging grip, which was good because I wasn't able to get a Pro controller from them. I had to get mine through Amazon.
I got mine through Best Buy. So
and then I ended up getting a second Pro controller, but through EB, but that was shipped to me later on. But I get into the store, and I'm basically limping at this point. 2.5 hours of me standing outside in the freezing rain, and I'm just like, I get up there, and they're like, "Are you buying?" And I can barely even talk anymore, and they're like trying to push on the, would you like a warranty? And I heard from the person in front of me, it's no longer a 2-year replacement, a 1 year that takes place the same year as your regular warranty. And I was like, what? And because when I got the last generation of consoles, the PS5 and the Xbox, it was a 2-year. Yes, it superseded what you had, but it was a 2-year replacement. And they're like, and it's $89. And I was like, no. They're like, would you like? I said, no. Console, paid off, picking up stuff. And I was very terse, and then they said, okay, we don't have those other things. I was like, cancel them. Well, it could take a while. Leave them on then. What do you have? And they're like, this. All right. And I paid like the difference, which was like $20 or whatever for the charging grip that I owed. And they're like, okay, is there anything else? Do you want the warranty? Do you want the? No, I want to go home and go to bed. And that's I said it exactly like that. And they're like, understood. They didn't even argue. They didn't try to upsell anything. Because I must have given a stare like I was so dead. And they're like, please don't let this fat guy die in our store. And as I was leaving, the security guards were there. They had hired like a security firm to run inside the store and outside. guy had a big grin on his face, and he's like, he gave me a nod, like, oh my god, like seriously, like because everybody else that was in there was like hemming and hawing, and like because the security guards don't get to go home until those people go home too. And my brother, while he was waiting, he was behind me, so he had to wait to come in because I got in before when they were like you and you, sort of like they point at you to let you in.
Yep.
And he was talking to me. He goes, security guards were told that they were originally only going to be paid until 2 a.m. They had to call for overtime. So it was like, oh, they wanted to leave too. So
yeah.
And I was thinking like, oh my god. And as we were leaving, there were still like 75 people online, and that was at 2:15 in the morning. I haven't heard back from them. I don't know if we're getting, I'm assuming I'll get my other pre-order stuff, and if not, they owe me $10
eventually,
right, for the things. But yeah, so like that was my story. There's probably more I I forget now from that streamer.
Yeah.
As much as I rag on him, he was a friendly enough guy, and he wasn't like overly rude. And when he heard that there were kids in line behind us, which by the way, do not bring your kids to a midnight launch in the rain. Like, and I mean, when I say kids, I mean like 6-year-olds.
Yeah, no, you could bring like a high school kid, but not like, no.
Maybe middle school.
Yeah.
If they're old enough and they get it.
Yeah.
It was a school night. School wasn't out yet. You know what I mean? It's like, what are these kids not going to school the next day? Like my parents would have never allowed that. So, I'll say this, like, about him like that, I'd make fun of that. I was okay with it at first. The longer the night went on, the more angry and disturbing I was like, I'm going to kill this kid. Shut up. Because he started doing things like, hey, let's play the most annoying music possible. He's playing, what was he looking up? What's it called? Brain rot something or other?
Oh, God.
Whatever the Gen Z stuff is called, brain rot music. And it's like weird versions of popular songs made to sound bad on purpose. Mm-hmm. As well as about like it was basically every stereotype that every boomer out there makes fun of, or like you'll see it like when they try to represent that, like much worse than any representation that they did of millennials. Like we thought, oh, it's offensive. No, like I always thought this was a joke when they're making fun of these people. Like, or if you see those like clips on Instagram or YouTube shorts, and they're showing off, like Mike, you might have seen them show up in your feed where they interview kids and they're like making fun of how like, oh, the toughest town to live in is, and they'll list like their own town, and it's like nothing town, and with like a fake accent, and it's like a fake, bullshit accent. This kid, it was not fake. This is like I couldn't believe a person like this existed, and I weep for the generation that this is their form of entertainment. And I was like, for 4 people, you did this for 4 people. And you had more people in line angry at you than people wanting to watch you.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my rant. It was an entertaining event, but if my brother hadn't have been there to sort of calm me down, it would have been
insufferable.
Yes, because he turned to me afterwards and he said, Alex, I've only ever seen you that quietly angry before. And the last time that happened, you screamed at a kid so bad he peed his pants, and that was like 25 years ago. Yeah, there was a kid that lived in the neighborhood that decided to run at my brother with hedge clippers, and I was like 14 or 15, and my brother was like 8 or 9, and he's screaming. And
you were
bloody
probably
murder.
Extremely tall for a person of that age.
I was 6'2" and like 240 pounds, and my friend was with me, and I see my brother with a blood curdling scream running, and this kid thinks it's funny to run at him with hedge clippers, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, like as hard as I could, that if you didn't put them down, I'm going to kill you. And then he peed his pants, ran home, and the kid never left the apartment building that was behind us. He never came to the park that was near our house ever again. To the point, and and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said I was going to kill him. I was a kid too, right?" But I was like, "If you come, I'll fucking kill you." And he just pees his pants, drops the hedge clippers. I don't even know whose they were, and he just runs home. And my brother's like, "You were as annoyed with this guy in front of you as that. The only difference was you have the calculated adult maturity to keep it internalized. He goes, but I could see, Alex, that your blood pressure wasn't so good. And I was like, no,
Yeah.
it was getting worse. If you hadn't been here, you might have turned on the news and it would have been like fat man arrested for having a heart attack while he murders a Gen Z kid live on stream.
Yeah.
Because he was getting worse and worse as we went.
Yeah. And the only thing that arose with the items that I received was, oh, the screen protector? Yeah, it's a piece of shit and is not the right size. But
it sucks.
for like $9, it's not the end of the world that it's that. So it's like, whatever,
so,
$9.
So sorry, that's the end of my stories there. I don't know if I guess we all had our interesting stories, and we're all annoyed in different ways. I'm happier with the console overall. I'm having a good time. It's playing the games better. You're right, Michael. It needs to have more new games for it. We'll see that trickling out over the summer.
The one manufacturing thing that is a little weird with it is it's a 3-foot USB-C cable for the power.
Yeah.
When the Switch One, I believe it like that cord's at least 6. And that was the one minor thing where I was just like, that's a little annoying.
Yeah. Oh well,
but for my setup, it's nothing. And also, you can just buy another USB-C, like 100-watt USB-C cable for $8. That's longer.
That's what I did. I bought a 2-pack for like 15 Canadian or $20, something like that. And they're rated for 100 watts a piece. And I used that in the living room. And I used, I have for my portable one, I have that as well. And out of all the extra accessories, the one that's worth getting is a second Nintendo power adapter because I don't trust anybody else's.
Well, most of these docks don't even give you another adapter. They're
pass-through only.
Nintendo one.
Yeah, and at 40, it's 40 Canadian for it. It is worth it because it is a GAN charger. Like it's not going to overheat or do anything weird.
Yeah, it's 35 here in the States.
Yeah, exactly. It's only $5 more in Canada, so it's actually a good deal considering the dock is like $150 to replace.
Yep, because there's a lot of shit in it.
Yeah, but it comes with one of those too. But yeah, that's that. I guess we're going to take a break here and go over to my segment that I recorded on all of the like ports and then some of the other titles that were released, and give our impressions on all that. And we'll come back in a little bit here and just sort of round out the show with closing thoughts on, everything as a whole, and then give a bit of a programming update on what's coming up on the show. So I guess take it away, me. Alex, the producer here, and we're going to do something a little bit different than we usually do. Normally, when we get a bunch of games for review, we do individual full-length reviews for each one. Generally, unless there is a game that came out that's mostly just a port or a simple upgrade edition, we might just review those individual segments when it's ported to something else and refer you to previous reviews we've done. And that's sort of what we're going to do here because we have the launch of the Switch 2. We're now about a week and a half in. Summer Game Fest is over, or at least we think it's over. And we're now trickling out with our game coverage because we were sent a lot of stuff right at launch. As pretty much everybody knows, nobody had hands-on with the console, or next to nobody did, ahead of release. And in most cases, we didn't get review codes or hands-on hardware until the day of launch, and in some cases after the weekend of the launch. So, we got our consoles midnight and on the launch day, and Summer Game Fest and all the game showcases and everything were happening a few days later. In many cases, between Thursday and Monday, we didn't get codes till right around Monday. So now, we're able to go through, have at least a few hours with each game, sit down and determine what's good, what's bad, are things worth it, how do they perform. There's a bunch of questions involved here. So we are going to be lumping together all of the games, and I'd say that were ports to the Switch with like enhanced versions that are available at retail that were considered launch titles, because most of them we've reviewed in the past on other hardware, and unless there's something pretty dramatically different about them, we won't be doing separate reviews. There will be a few that we do, and they won't be mentioned here at all because we will have separate mini reviews or full reviews of those, because those in particular are more than just a port to this platform ready to go at launch. They're either built from the ground up specifically for the Switch 2 or have substantial changes. So it's going to be a little more freeform. I'm going to start with, these are all from different publishers, because they're sort of a hodgepodge of things that were released. I'm going to mention the first one that I checked out. One of the reasons being it's also a very large title, is Split Fiction. It's from Haze Light and EA Originals. We reviewed it earlier this year when we had it on the PC as well as PlayStation, and now it's available on Switch 2 at launch. It is a bit controversial in its release because it is released as a code in a box. It's not even a game key card. And the reason for that, I think, is that it's 70 gigs. It's pretty large. We're not going to get into the discourse, at least not during my review, about the release strategy and how, key cards, and then there's full editions, and then there's codes in a box. That's a discussion we can have on the main show together. It's also something that's been played to death now with people. I think pretty much everybody knows whether you have an opinion on that or not, whether it bothers you, whether it's a fundamental issue for you. And I'm just here to say that, getting a review copy of it, I am very happy that I made sure I purchased the 512 gig micro SD Express card. I would have gotten the terabyte one, but I can't justify over $350 Canadian for that. It was just, half the price of the console for that. So the sweet spot, I think, right now is the 512. If you are going to be getting games like this that, are above 30 gigs a piece, you're going to definitely want to have the 512, unless you're going to be doing a lot of downloading, deleting, re-downloading, that sort of stuff. You'll be sort of stuck doing that. And as it is, I've had to rebalance some things by installing some games to the internal storage, some games to the SD Express card. But as it stands, this is one of the largest, if not the largest, games physically as far as how much space it takes up. And I can say, to me, it looked and felt it was playing as parity, basically, with how I was playing it on PlayStation. Visually, there might be some things, to the naked eye that are a little different. I also played mostly, doing the original review of this, on PC. And on my PC, it's very well optimized. You're able to max it out, 4K, all the high settings, and have no frame rate drops. Here, I would say the performance is pretty good. They scaled it pretty well. There might be, if I played certain more intense areas, some issues, but it has the audio, the visual feel, seems to be performing quite well. If you're somebody who hadn't had a chance to play it, you don't have a gaming PC, you didn't have the ability to play it on PlayStation or another platform, having this as something you can take on the go with the Nintendo Switch, pretty good. I would say the netcode for it is pretty fine. I did play mostly local multiplayer for this, but you can do the friend pass sharing and everything, and that in itself is pretty sweet. I think it holds up. I do think that it's going to find maybe a new audience that didn't get a chance to play it now that it's on the Switch too, because there's already 3.5-4 million of these consoles sold, so it's something to consider. Just know that you are going to be using up 70 gigabytes of storage, if not more if there's patches later on. So it's something to consider, that if you've only got the 256 gigs of internal, you are going to need an external card for this, because again, it's not like it comes, if you purchase it physically, it's not going to have a card with all the data on it. Moving on, we've also had a chance to check out some other games from a few different publishers. I had the ability to play the 3 launch titles from Sega, and I'm going to mention that I'll be doing probably more coverage of the Yakuza 0 Director's Cut at a later date, because I've had enough time to spend a few hours with it, because it isn't just, Yakuza 0 that we've covered in the past. It is the Director's Cut, meaning there is, new English dub for it, a lot of stuff added to it. Visually, this might be the most impressive game I played so far on the Switch 2. Even over top of Nintendo's Mario Kart, just in its visual flair, knowing how difficult this game engine had been to run on some previous gen hardware like the PS4 and that. It's definitely a showcase for the platform, and it's a good jumping in point. You're sort of starting. Some people say, "Oh, you should play it in the exact order the games came out." No, I honestly think that Yakuza 0 is a good starting point. It's also, it's a larger game to install, but it's not too massive, and it just is very performant. Controls are nice and tight. The audio, translates well. It's one thing I've noticed as a whole, I'll say as a blanket statement for all these games, is that the Switch 2 feels like they're using a little bit less audio compression, or maybe a better codec or something, because either listening with headphones through my television, or headphones through the Pro Controller, or just in my surround sound set, it feels like the audio is crisper and has less compression than when I played the regular original Switch. So I don't think it's a placebo effect or anything, but I think it's legitimately sounds better. Also had a chance to play Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. Now, Puyo Puyo Tetris, I remember playing the first one we got for review way back when the console had launched of the original Switch. And I believe I played the second one, Tetris 2S. Or no, sorry, Tetris 2, just the original version. But the S version here has, a pretty snappy load time. Like, pretty much everything loads really quickly. It includes features for the mouse support, which is, something big. And for a puzzle game, that can be, something good, or it can be a gimmick. I think that it controls pretty good either way. You don't need to use the mouse controls. But it does support the camera and game chat and game share, which is something. Game share is not really something that has been available for every single game at launch. But the fact that it's here, and it's the kind of game with 2D graphics that is going to be able to be done, fairly good. It's not like super fast Twitch gameplay where you're going to have to worry about like frame rate drops or any performance issues that way. So I think it handles the little added features pretty well. And then there's Sonic Shadow Generation. Now this has the Shadow Hedgehog. It's basically the same thing that we played last year. We talked about for our holiday gift guide. But I can say it's pretty performant visually. They've done a good job porting it. Don't expect to be like the same as like if you played this on a PS5 at the max 4K settings. There's going to be some subtle differences, but overall, I do think they've done a good job. The scaling of the graphics, I think the big deal here is the fact that everything with the Switch 2 uses like NVIDIA's DLSS for upscaling. I think the upscaler, for the most part, looks a little nicer than the solutions that you end up having to use with PlayStation. So something to consider. I would say it's a well-worthy port. Out of the bunch here, I think Puyo Puyo uses more of the features of the Switch 2, but the most impressive of them is by far the Yakuza 0, and I think that's a good place for a lot of people to start in the franchise, especially if you're getting your Switch 2. What would I like to get? Something that really wows with visual flair, and that's one that definitely does. I would say they're all worth trying because they're all in different lanes when it comes to gameplay. But I do think like the standout of the Sega releases is Yakuza 0, and I do expect to probably do more coverage of that in a little bit as I get a chance to play fully through it. But just know, I think you'll be impressed if you play that. We've also got for the Switch 2's launch, the Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition on Switch 2. We briefly talked about this when they did the VR release and on the PlayStation 5 about a month or two ago. And we've had a chance now to try it. We were sent review copies. on Switch 2, and it's impressive that they can include everything here that was in the previous editions. I can say this though, the performance is pretty rough. I think that there's a lot more patches that need to be done to this. I was sort of holding off doing a full review and coverage of this because I don't think that this version was ready. It gets very framey, especially if you like go into a menu and then hop back, or you know how you can press the home button to suspend the game if you want to go do something, answer the door, go to the washroom, grab a bite to eat, come back. Doing that and then going back into the game from the Switch's menu, it just tanks the frame rate. Something weird about how it's doing memory management or something. And there's probably going to be patches that come out for it that fix it, but at launch, it's probably not worth checking out and worth skipping. It's also one of the most heavy games to download when it comes to storage space, but it is really cool to see the Hitman game engine working in a portable system as well as it did, even with this performance issues. But that's one to keep an eye on. We will update, obviously, as more patches and things come out for it. There's also our friends over at Koei Tecmo sent Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening, a complete edition, to check out on the Switch 2 as well. This, if you've known the long-running series, is the strategy, world-conquering game that tells the story of Nobunaga's Ambition. Now, I'll say this performs quite well because it's not the kind of game that needs, super high-end graphics to process, but it's nice and clean and crisp and clear and plays in 4K on the television, and in portable mode it works quite well. It also has the ability to use like the mouse controls, and they've done some stuff to take advantage of the console as well, but it's not something that's pushing the console beyond, I would say, what you would expect. But it's also happy to see that it actually just is as functional as it is. I didn't encounter any frame rate drops. Load times are good. Battery life's pretty good too. That's one thing to note with a lot of these games. The ones that are like much more graphically intense, I've noticed the battery starts to drain a fair bit quicker. And this is one that I had running no problem, and I could run it like lower visual like brightness settings and everything, and it worked just fine. It's weird that I think of this as almost like a cozy game for me, even though it's like a world conquering game. But it is having a good time with it. Maybe do a longer form review later on. Just we're a couple weeks in, and with all these stuff, wanted to make sure that we at least did some previews and game impressions. And I didn't want this one to sort of fall by the wayside. I do think that it's pretty sweet. We also have what else do we have here? We have people I'm going to talk about later on in a separate review. But I did have a chance to check out Street Fighter 6 and Kunitsugami from Capcom. Birdman might do his impressions either in a separate show or in a review that we do combined on Street Fighter 6, since he has a fight stick, and now that it's been firmware updated, he should be able to use it. I had a chance to check this out. I'd only ever played Street Fighter 6, I think, briefly with him once at his place, and I'd seen like demos and that done of it. Being more of a casual fighting fan, I wanted to see how I could play, and played with the newer modern controls. I went and did every single fighter character through the arcade mode. I got their whole storylines for each one. I went and played some online matches, did a little bit of the world tour sort of modes where you're going around, and it functions quite well. I seem to have 60 FPS the whole time, regardless of any issues. I didn't encounter any when it came to performance. I think that they've done quite a good job when it comes to making sure that the experience is going to be probably the same whether you play it on a dedicated console or you're playing it Switch in portable mode. It is also one of the larger games to download, so you're going to want again to have a memory card for it. So that is something to consider. This is a game that has the updates for the years 1 and 2 roster pack built in with it, and that with the downloads and everything, it does add up to pretty big. Like, this is going to take up some space if you're using it on your internal drive, but I was very impressed visually. Probably the second best looking Switch launch title that I can think of, or Switch 2 launch title, sorry. I still get used to saying Switch 2, but I do believe it's still the second best looking one that I've seen, the best being Yakuza. Controls are nice and tight and precise, no lag or anything there on my end. Birdman will be able to do a little more in-depth detail when he does with his fight stick or playing wired. I played it, wirelessly, either with the Joy-Cons or with the Pro Controller 2 for it. And then Kunitsukami, Path of the Goddess, plays fantastic. It really does. It looks, as far as I can tell, identical to previous console releases, that were running in 4K, no problem. I think it almost is a game that suits the Switch better, because it feels like a game that's made to be done at a little bit smaller doses on the Switch platform, where you can just play with a little bit from bed, turn it off. The graphics are complemented from the screen. It looks good when you're playing it there. And I find that I think it's going to have like a second life, I guess, on the Switch 2, because I feel like people liked it when it came out a little bit, and then it sort of came and went. People almost sort of forgot about it. And even here with this launch, like, I don't think a lot of people were talking about it, even though, to me, it's one of the better releases here on Switch 2. Now, beyond this, we also had Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. Now, this is, a full brand new game. This is the only one I'm going to talk about in here as a pure, full, little review here. And that is from our friends over at Marvelous. This is one of the few games that, if you purchase the physical edition, is available in North America as a full game on the cart. You don't need to download anything. It's to be played. It's not a game card, key card. It's not a code in a box. It is a full game. In my case, obviously, I had a download for it, and I can say it's one of the best performant games. It's been a while since I played a Rune Factory game, and I can say it starts out quite well. The whole tutorial mode, it didn't feel super long and drawn out like it can sometimes feel in these games. It sort of brought you into the action right away. It's just something about the whole theme of this game is easier to suck me in. Visually, it's probably the best looking Rune Factory game I've played. I can't imagine, without them doing a massive change to the way that their art direction is, it being too taxing on the system. I feel this one is probably going to sell quite well on its own, because it's been getting a lot of good word of mouth just for being something that's not on, a game key card or code in a box. It is a full retail physical release that you don't need the internet for. That in itself, I don't know what for I can say for it, because I think a lot of people are already checking it out. Just know that it is a very solid game. You're going to get about 40 hours of gameplay out of the main storyline. I am admittedly about 20 hours in, because, again, so many other things that we've had to review. But if you're going to go for like a completion run, you're looking at 100, 150 hours, somewhere in there, depending on how you take your time with it. I do think that a lot of people are going to see this as their first Rune Factory game, and it is a good one to get into. So I think there's a good variety here of the games that are, for the most part, some of them are ports, with some enhancements. Some have a little bit more involved with them when it comes to having, extra controls, using either the mouse controls or the cameras and all that stuff. But as with most launch titles, usually when a system launches, there's not as many things that really truly take advantage of all the features of a new system. And I think they did a pretty good job here with most of these titles, having little bits and pieces of some things, at least, that can be used to show off some of the game features. We'll definitely see more of that as we go down the line. But as of right now, this is pretty good. I have a few more, as I said, games that we received for review that I'll do as smaller separate releases, as they're more involved. They're either more a completely new separate game or a game that is not tied to a previous edition that's been ported over. So that's going to do it for my sort of roundabout discussion on most of the launch titles that are ports or that are some of the higher profile releases here for the Nintendo Switch 2. So I guess I'm going to send it back to probably Birdman or myself, and we'll be closing out the show with whatever this segment is a part of.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And we're back, and that is our sort of impressions on a lot of the ports that came out for the launch day of the Switch. You know, as what happens with a lot of new consoles, you get ports initially. Here, at least in some cases, they made use of having things like the mouse controls or camera support, some of the new features. I think one thing we can agree on is they're trying to push the camera, chat, and the mouse as like their big innovations. It's not like in previous generations of Nintendo consoles where there's dramatically new things. The Switch itself was dramatically new, just being a portable console with the Joy-Cons. Prior to that, you had the Wii U screen. Prior to that, you had just the motion controls in general. Before that, like, this is probably the first time since the GameCube where it hasn't been like a massive change, right? I guess you could argue that between the N64 and GameCube, like the big difference might have been like analog triggers, but that was probably it. So programming wise, we will have a bunch of new reviews coming for some of the other games that we were sent that were like original titles for the Switch 2. There's going to be probably more Switch news coming other than the Donkey Kong Direct that's coming this week. There's probably going to be more, but we'll include them unless there's major ones in just the regular show, or in that, unless there's like a major change that we'll do coverage for. But I think, Birdman and I both have Street Fighter. We'll probably have to play some Street Fighter together, Mike, and make sure that we can actually sort of jump in and give our opinions on how the multiplayer works online.
I'm gonna fuck you up so bad.
Yeah, that's
yeah, probably.
That's fucking
very true.
You kid.
It's very. Or maybe I'll have to enforce rules. You can only play with new controls on, so that it fucks with your brain because you're used to doing all the manual old controls. And,
well, he can still.
You can assign me light punch only, and I will break you.
Alex, he can still do the motions in modern mode.
Oh yeah,
and still, yeah, he can. You can
Yeah.
still do the motions in modern mode.
You can only play as. There's a couple. Oh, you can only play as Dalsim because I hate how floaty he is.
All right.
You have to play as one. You have to play as one of the floaty characters with like when I was playing as him. I was like, oh my god, it's goddamn Luigi Mario 2 physics.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, beyond
Overall, I would just say Pokemon is now a playable video game.
Right. That is one thing we didn't touch upon, is that anything that had an unlocked frame rate on Switch 1 that played like shit plays great.
Yep. The Warriors games run at their FPS lock. It's just, it would be nice to have a little patch just to unlock the dynamic frame.
Yeah.
Dynamic resolution, I mean.
Oh, yeah, that's
all.
I don't know if they've patched it yet, but I don't know, Mike, have you had a chance to check out some of the other Capcom fighting games? Because
I did
have some graphical glitches when you're playing
See,
online.
I've never experienced that. I messed around with Capcom Fighting Collection 1. I played Marvel Superheroes, X-Men vs. Street Fighter. I futzed around with Capcom Fighting Collection 2. I played Street Fighter Alpha 3 Upper. And yeah, plays fine. Plays great with my 8-bit duo fight stick. I'm very impressed.
The fighter collections can't be sold right now on Switch 2. If you go to the eShop on the Switch 2 for the Capcom fighters, it says not available, and it says because of compatibility issues.
Interesting.
So I think
Capcom
both of them
run a patch eventually.
I was going to say both of them weren't available, but number 2 is now available. So I think they've already patched 2.
Good.
So yeah, I mean, that beyond that, programming wise, Earth versus Soup's coming up. A whole bunch of them have already been edited. We're releasing them. We have, as Mike said, a bunch of content recorded that we're going to be releasing sporadically throughout the summer. Now that we're mostly done with all the prototypey stuff, again, who knows? It might be a big showcase that comes out that we just have to cover, but we're getting back into the swing of things. A few more weeks of regular shows coming back, as well as Turtle Treasure review shows. Birdman, I don't know if you are going to say what they have, but you've got some interviews lined up. You've also got other cool things in the works.
Yeah, I'm basically doing stuff for Free RPG Day, kind of leading up to it. I'll be talking with some people that I work with over on Star Trek Adventures, other freelancers, but also the line editor, Jim Johnson, who's also the project manager. So we'll be talking about that. I'm going to do a preview of what's coming out for Free RPG Day as well. So lots of good stuff.
Awesome. So yeah, I guess that's going to be it for us here. We've got more stuff coming this week, but it's been a while since we've had a console launch special, and it's nice to sort of sit down. As much as we might have been complaining about things, it's ultimately because we do care so much about the hobby that we love, and it's just like, we're getting old and exhausted at things now. I think a bit of the wonder has left our eyes from when we were in our 20s, right? When it comes to, but at the same time, I think I'm happy with the console. I want more games to come. I would have liked more stuff to have been ready at launch. I do think that DK should have been a launch title, because outside of they had no single player game ready for launch. Yeah, it was just basically Mario Kart. And I'll mention out of a couple things that I purchased for myself. I purchased Fast Fusion from Shinin Games because they always make some pretty good launch titles. It's a good racing, but again, it's a racing title. It's good. I did not get the welcome tour thing. My brother did, and he got it for one simple reason. He wanted to try out the family game sharing with me, and he did that. He was over at my place. He shared it with me. I played for a little bit, and I'm like, it's a very interesting thing. And I actually think it's fascinating. Some of the mini games are kind of fun. It should not have been $15 Canadian, 10 American. It should not only have
at most $5.
I was going to say it should have been at most $5 American, $7.99 Canadian. It really should have been the pack-in title. It's not. It's not people like, oh, it stands alone on its own. It does not.
Especially when you have to buy their Switch camera, their official Switch camera, in order to finish the game.
Yeah, there's too much involved. I'm very surprised that it wasn't included. It should have been included in everything, even like the non-Mario Kart bundle. There should have been something included so that out of the box you could play. Because
just make it an NSO title.
Because think about this: Xbox. When you buy a brand new Xbox, it comes with, at the very minimum, either a bundle or it comes with a code for at least a month or 3 months of their online service. And with PlayStation, every single PlayStation comes with Astro.
Yes.
Not the newest one. The bundled Astro.
Yeah.
So that in itself is like a 5 to 10 hour game, or about 5 hours, and that they could have easily charged money for that, but they didn't. So I mean, there's some parts of Nintendo that I feel have dropped the ball on the launch, but we'll see. I suspect that come the holiday season, they'll bundle in a code probably for Welcome Tour.
Metroid.
They're not going to bundle Metroid. It'll be they're going to try to get all their money's worth of that. And then we also there should have been more stuff at launch, I think. But
yeah,
I do think overall it's a solid console. It just needs more software.
Yes.
And that's going to do it for us here at This Week in Geek. We'll be back. I don't know what our next special is going to be, but we'll be back with something.
Exactly. Always keep it locked. We got lots of good stuff coming up. The site will constantly update. Keep it locked here.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.